Hey everybody, my name is Jill. I have suffered from severe generalized anxiety disorder for 28 years, as well as major depression. And I am sharing my story in hopes that someone um, will be able to see this and feel like they're not alone. Also, to try and erase a lot of the guilt and shame that comes around with mental illness, and to try and help break that stigma. Um, I am not a doctor. This is not meant to be medical advice. It's simply my experience. If you are suffering, if you need help, there's phone numbers below. There, go to an emergency, talk to your doctor, talk to your family, talk to your friends, get yourself some help. On my last video, I and kind of just summarize that I had made it back to school, and I had then went to the States and did my practicum, and the whole point of that message was that it wasn't perfect, but I got it done. And I know I've said before, I'm trying not to go linear, because there are years that are, and sometimes more than 1 year, that are better than others. Um, so for this video, I'm going to start with something that I guess you could call it a bit of a rant, but I just find it so triggering. Um, Everybody knows that when you Google something, or you're researching something, or you hold your phone on that story for too long, you start to get, I guess, the algorithms start to feed you more of that information. So, of course, because I've been posting about anxiety and depression and have been researching, even just because I looked up more of the crisis phone numbers and everything, I start getting these ads for anxiety and depression. And it's like I got one this morning, and as you're scrolling through, and it's like in this big bold highlighting, like, anxiety is not a mental disorder. And I'm like, well, there's a whole community of doctors and a whole faction of science that would actually disagree with you. We have a DSM-5 diagnostic tool to tell us about all of the different mental disorders, and um, how to diagnose what are the symptoms of the different ones. Um, so there's that. And it just is so triggering to me, because it's so irresponsible. I mean, social media in general is basically like, unless you're looking, just sharing with your friends, sometimes it's just so irresponsible. But anyway, and and then if you go and click, which of course I'm making the algorithm worse, but if I go and click to see, they're selling you something like how I did it, rewire your anxious brain in 5 weeks. Like, um, another one was, I gave my life to God and my depression went away. And I'm just like, okay, I cannot imagine being young, looking for information, and trying to get through this type of BS, right? I can't imagine trying to go through that. Um, and these people have millions of followers, or hundreds of thousands of followers, and people are buying into it. Now, I'm not saying that maybe what they have to offer isn't helpful, but I can tell you that you can probably find that information from approved psychologists, people who have written books with, professors of cognitive behavioral therapy. There are tools out there that you can invest in. I also have a lot of books, so check with me if you're looking for one that you can invest in where you can at least look at the credentials of these people. And it's so important to do that because if if they're going to be so irresponsible as to say that anxiety is not a mental disorder, then I can't imagine what content it is that they're pushing. Now, I also know, like, I touched on the, Jesus saved me. And again, I am a Christian. I believe in God. I'm not saying that there is not going to be some help and solace for you in the church, but I can tell you that if God was going to, if I could do enough rosaries and prayers to undo my mental health issues, I would have been saved. So, that is to say, to please use a lot of caution. And I guess I always look at it through the lens of what would I do if I was a young person when I was struggling at 20 and 21, and even bring it into your teens, trying to find information, something helpful. Because I can tell you, I did actually buy, it was this is how old I am, but it was this 16 set cassette tape. It was about how to deal with your anxiety, and it had a workbook that went with it. It was like a cognitive behavioral therapy, which is pretty standard in when you go to therapy. And it had 16 cassettes, and I would play the one cassette and flip it over in the car and play the other side, and then I put it in my Walkman. Yes, I had a Walkman. I did that, and I made the investment in the tools, but it was it was from somebody who, well, I don't I can't remember all of their credentials, but I did find it helpful for me, but in no way it was basically about helping to control your anxiety. It was not something about let's abolish it. I would never be so irresponsible to make blanket statements on anything. That's why I'm being so very careful about the medications. I'm not saying what medications did and did not work and what were good and bad for me, as much as I can. I would never tell anybody that you need medication. I would never tell anybody you don't need medication. There are a million different tools out there to help. Million might be a little much, but to help you, to help manage and help you with your mental illness. And what works for me might work for you. You can do ketamine infusions. And I would never judge somebody who does ketamine infusions. I'm not a candidate for that as far as what it is that they're supposed to do. And actually my psychiatrist said, like, it's good, it lasts for a certain amount of time and it works faster than medication, but the window's a little bit shorter. And if they could just figure out how to make that longer, it would be, they need to work more on that science or whatever. Anyway, I asked the questions. I am not a candidate, but again, I would never say you need therapy. I would never say you don't need therapy. I'd say most of the world needs therapy, actually, in general, but uh, that's not, I'm not here to pass any judgment. I'm just telling you my story. But please be careful, because doctors on Instagram and doctors on TikTok, like, everybody's selling. I would never put what I'm saying or what I'm doing behind a paywall or making ads or whatever that is. I would never do that, because what's the point? Like, I'm not trying to go viral. I'm trying to sell you something. So you have to remember that a lot of these ads and that there people are making money off of that. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You may put something into it, but that's where I'm like, okay, if you're going to spend any of the money, at least make sure it's somebody credible, or as credible as you can check it out. Um, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I'm going to fast forward to right after I had my son. So I was 24. Now I'm 24 at this time. And the whole time that I was pregnant, I didn't have to take any medication. Everything went away. And I wasn't on much medication because I had tried something, it didn't work, and um, I just I still had my anti-anxiety medication, but I didn't even need that when I was pregnant. And I remember saying to my mom, like, oh wow, maybe that was just a blip, maybe that was all that was, and now I'm going to be okay. And I said either that, or I guess the trick is to stay, this is a joke, trick is to stay pregnant for your whole life, which obviously is not going to work. um, so I have my beautiful baby boy, and I'm going to trucking along, learning how to be a new mom. And I had got a full-time job. I still work for that company today. And I'm going to say probably about three or 4 months in, I really noticed starting to have those same thoughts and feelings that I had prior to getting diagnosed. And I was so scared because it's one thing to be responsible for yourself, but when you have to be responsible and take care of this tiny human who, you love to death, it gets even more scary. And um, so I knew that I can't let this get like I did the last time into a full crisis mode. So I went back to my doctor, and um, he put me on something, a medication, and it was a little bit helpful. I was doing okay. I still wasn't like going out or doing any of the things. I mean, obviously, I'm also a mother, but I was on maternity leave, and I just, um, yeah, I was just learning how to be a mom to going through all of that. But I don't know that I would call it postpartum depression. I don't know. No one ever really said that's what it was because I had it before. Um, but I was hoping that it was going to be a better, that I was better. And then realizing that it's coming back was not, was kind of devastating in a way. Like I thought I had beaten it by going out and going to the States, finishing school, and I thought that I had finally, solved the mystery, and unfortunately, I hadn't. But I do go back to work, and I'm going to say just quickly, I did not have a very, and well, in my opinion, I did not have a very good person in charge of my medications, and that was not my family doctor. And that's all that I will say about that. But what ends up happening, so as things are starting to get worse again, and I'm not being very stable, um, the answer was I just kept going up and up on this medication, and it got to the point where I was on 100 milligrams more than the recommended highest dose, and I was not well. Now, I'm not going to put any blame on any doctor. Should be able to cure my mental illness. I now know that that is just something that I have to live with, but the level of care was subpar, to say the least. Um, so I am back at work, but I am not sleeping. I am trying to be a mom to my little boy, and I'm so afraid that I'm not going to be the best mom that he needs, that he deserves, because I know where I've been and I feel like I'm heading back there again. So the medication that I was on so much, they start to take me off, and I I could be wrong. It's in the 20s. The number 26 stands out to me, but for there wasn't a day for 26 days in a row that I did not vomit multiple times trying to get off this medication. Now, I'm not, there are, the withdrawing from medication is not always fun. This is not to scare people, but I was, first of all, on way too high of a dose. Secondly, like it just isn't. It's not fun. If you think of somebody who is on drugs, right? They are always searching for the hits. You take something that you don't have to search for that hit. You're constantly have the chemicals in your brains that are working to work on the deficit of the chemical imbalance. And then you take those away, things are going to get wonky. And just like when you start a medication, you usually will have some nausea and so on. When you stop a medication, those same things apply. So, of course, after I ended up having to leave work because on disability for because of this, and that started a very dark to I don't know, I shouldn't say very dark, but it started a 2-year process of me trying to get back again to what I needed to be for my son. So I had to leave work, and I was then put on some very strong medications from like early antidepressants, and I don't know why. Um, there were a lot of other alternatives out there that were new or that I personally had not tried. And I was put on these medications, and I would sleep uh, like it would be almost like I would be super, super like get up and go and then crash and then take another one and you super get up and go and crash. And it was I was just on a spiral, a downward spiral. Like I don't believe that I was being given the care that I needed in the sense of the right types of medication. I felt dismissed. I felt so hopeless. Like I'm trying to fight for me, but also fight for my son who needs me to be there for him. And I remember I was talking to my family doctor. I was on the phone with him, and I mean, he's been my doctor since I was born. And I literally was begging, I mean, begging him to please take me off these medications and put me on something normal. Like, put me on something newer, or just like not these from the 1960s or 70s. Like, please put me on something normal. I need to, I need you to do that. Unfortunately, what happens is these medications, the early ones, you have to go I believe it's 2 full weeks without having anything before you can start a new one. But he did agree. And I know that doctors don't like to say bad things about other doctors or professionals, and I get it, but I wanted a referral. I wanted somebody else. I needed somebody else to be in charge of what was happening to me if I had any hope. And he didn't really want to do that. And I get that. I'm not blaming him. So I decided to go to the head of psychiatry in New Brunswick and fight for what I thought was the best thing for me. And thankfully, I was able to get a new psychiatrist. Took about 6 months, but I did get a new psychiatrist. And that was the best thing that I'm one of the best things that had happened that happened to me, because I got an amazing psychiatrist. In my last video, I said I've had 7 psychiatrists. 6 of them have been amazing. So um, I'm on this medication. It's a newer medication. It's pretty standard medication that someone could even get today. And then after a month or two, I start to feel so much better. And I want to say, like, I own the fact that a lot of time in those early days that I played a bit, not a victim, but I was still kind of thinking that a medication would cure everything, and that I would be cured. Because sometimes, again, like those videos and stuff, they tell you, oh, we're going to be cured. And like sometimes the therapies is like, no one's really telling you, like, this is gonna be it for the rest of your life. And so I hadn't really got there yet, but I was doing some of I was doing the things that you also needed to do. My parents had bought me a treadmill for Christmas. I asked for a treadmill so that I could, when I started getting anxiety, I could hop right on a treadmill no matter the weather. I could just start walking. And that was one of my coping mechanisms. I had done a lot of therapy. I had the the self help books where you go through, and I took those seriously, very seriously. I mean, I'd lend them out sometimes to people at work. I'm like, you can see my answers if you want, but so I totally own that part. I want that part to be clear. But getting on that medication, getting in to see a new psychiatrist, and then I was able to go back, get myself better, and get back to work. It took about 2 years. I went and did day therapy at the hospital. Unfortunately, I don't believe that's a thing anymore. Um, where you could go in, you pick the courses that you want, and do the day therapy at the hospital. It was an amazing program ran by amazing people. Um, and I started to do a lot. I got a new psychiatrist, an amazing psychiatrist who worked with me, and he was the first one to actually say, Jill, you have to live with this for the rest of your life, potentially. So you need to accept that, and we need to find things that the right medications to keep you functional and at work and give you some level of joy in life. And as shitty as that as shitty as that was to hear, at the same time, I was like, Okay, okay. So that's what I'm going to have to do because I was so determined to try and be the best mom and person that I could. I didn't want my son to have to, I mean, I'm sure he's witnessed, he has, I mean, he's not oblivious to it, but like, I didn't want him to know his mom as being the one who is puking on medicines all the time, or has to sleep at this certain time, or can't read a book, can't read a book to him at this certain time because, I'm having a major panic attack. Um, so I'll end this video to say that sometimes you have to fight for yourself, and you need, I understand how exhausting and tiring just dealing with mental illness is. And not everybody has the luxury to even be able to get paid to go on short term or long term disability through their work. I come from a place of privilege. I was able to do that, thankfully. And I acknowledge that. And the load is already so heavy. If you need help finding resources, if you need help, you need somebody to help carry the load for you a little bit, I will help do that for you. If you need books, book recommendations, things that I've found have worked for me, I can help you with that. I'm more than willing to help with that and share what has worked for me. Um, so I'll end this video to say, please do not rely on the doctors of Instagram and Snapchat or TikTok. Please use credible sources that you can vet. And if you need somebody to help you advocate for yourself, please reach out. I will help you advocate. I will, if you have somebody to take some of the load off of you, then it gives you a little bit more of that energy to fight. Thank you as always. Have a good day.